Welcome to the Tangle with Kyle Ridley. Happy August. Welcome to all our new listeners and people who have been with me throughout these last couple months. So happy to have you. We are nearing the end of summer before school starts, so savor all the sunshine and hot weather that you can, or in my area, very humid. And I'm not the biggest summer fan. It's definitely my least favorite season. I'm a fall guy, I'm a winter guy, then spring, then summer, but I don't mind the earlier nights when it starts getting colder. I don't mind the chill. I like to stay in my hoodie and sweats and curl up with the dogs. So I'm okay with summer moving by kind of fast. I'm also a fall baby, so that's a fun time to look forward to, the holidays and all of that. I know, we're still in August. Don't get ahead of myself. But I did have a dream the other night that it was time to put up the Christmas tree, and it made me happy. So I'm ready. What else am I tangled in? I would say, it's hard to describe, but I'm almost tangled in some apathy lately, which is not a great quality to have. I feel like I have a lot going on right now. I'm just not fully grasping, I don't have a good grasp on where I'm heading, which is kind of new to me. And in a way, it's not new to me because, a few years ago, I went through a big breakup and got a divorce and didn't know I was where I was heading. And then I got a new job, and earlier this year, quit that job and got a new one and started my own media company, a podcast. So there's a lot of new things, a lot of new beginnings and endings along the way. But when you look at like a 5 year, 10-year plan, I haven't really been able to pin that down for a while now. I think part of me just gets a little antsy thinking about, well, which is going to stick, which venture is going to be my new solid ground and that I'm super passionate about and will sustain me. And when I am a little overwhelmed or stretched in so many places, then I think that's when the apathy sets in. It's just like, well, I don't care. I'm going to do nothing and sit on the couch. But I'm conscious of it. It's not a depression. I think it's just a little restlessness and aimlessness. And it's also of my doing. So that's where I'm at. And I had some car trouble. That always just adds another layer of annoyance to anyone's life, right? And also, to be candid, I have a family member who was recently diagnosed with something, and that's certainly stressful. And they have to go for treatment, and I'll certainly be there to help. And those things always come out of nowhere, and your resilience is put to the test, and I'm handling it well. I think everyone's handling it well. It's just a looming cloud. But it's also life. It's also you're getting older. I'm 40 now. There's been a significant change since I turned 40 where I'm actually feeling I'm in my fourth decade, or I guess it's fifth decade technically. I'm feeling my age. And I didn't really feel that through my 30s. And 40 is by no means old, but feeling sore. I wake up rickety and have to go to the chiropractor and get massages and make sure I stretch. And yeah, you wake up and you're 40 and you've been married and divorced and you're on your second or third career and life catches up to you. But we manage. No complaints, right? What am I tangled in that's good? What am I watching? What am I watching? Not my type of movie, but I did watch Happy Gilmore 2. I wanted something light and easy while I was on the elliptical, and it's what you would expect. I'm sure Happy Gilmore fans loved it. A very simple watch. It's an Adam Sandler movie. I'm not going to critique it too deeply. It is what it is. I also watched Leanne Morgan's new show, Leanne, and I'm so happy that she's getting this long overdue attention. She's a fantastic comedian, a great actress. I watched most of the first season already. She's very heartfelt, very deserving of all the success that she's having. So I love to see it. I also watched Death of a Unicorn. It was interesting, nothing to rave about, but I'll watch anything that Paul Rudd does. It was kind of a callback to weird 90s movies in that sense. It was cool. And then I also watched Final Destination Bloodlines. And again, that is what it is. It's a bunch of gruesome deaths, but I grew up watching those Final Destination movies. So it was cool to return to it, and maybe that's the relaxing watch that you need. Mindless deaths and weird manners, people getting crushed in trash cans and garbage bins and getting run over by lawnmowers, getting their heads cut up. Comfort viewing, right? So it is a new month, so I'm going to have to start a new book. I try to read at least one a month, and I've been doing well for the last few years of that. And speaking of books, I highly recommend my guest today's beautiful, harrowing, hilarious memoir. Her name is Chelsea Devantez. She's one of my favorite people, one of my favorite authors now, and one of my favorite podcasters. Her book is called I Shouldn't Be Telling You This, but I'm Going to Anyway. I first heard Chelsea Devantez several years ago, maybe pre-pandemic or early pandemic. She was on one of my other favorite podcasts, Bitch Sesh, with Casey Wilson and Danielle Schneider. And she was talking about a podcast that she was considering launching where she reviewed celebrity memoirs. It was one of her favorite things to do is read autobiographies. And I was like, well, who is this woman? Look her up immediately on Instagram and follow her. And then shortly after, she did launch that podcast. It was called Celebrity Book Club with Chelsea Devantez, and it was with a media company for the first year. And then she went independent. And I'm a proud Patreon subscriber to that podcast. And then she rebranded a couple years ago, and her podcast empire now is called Glamorous Trash. And in addition to reviewing celebrity memoirs every week, they're also reviewing viral articles. They're talking about some of their favorite TV shows. She's such a smart and gifted person and a funny storyteller and has a long history of success with writing. She was the head writer for Jon Stewart. She wrote on Girls Five Eva and Bless This Mess and Not Dead Yet. She's also written and produced films, and she's working on a TV show right now. She's always got so many plates in the air that she's juggling, and this conversation is just one of my favorites. Again, her book, I shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm going to anyway, is available now. It was my favorite book of 2024, and I was also on her podcast a year or two ago talking about getting that book published, and we also recorded an episode where we broke down Betty Gilpin's memoir, All the Women in My Brain, which was one of our favorites. Such an inspiring story Chelsea has. There's a trigger warning with this episode. We talk about domestic violence, which is a big part of her story and a big part of her book that almost didn't happen because, as you'll hear, she had to redact a lot of the book before publishing. So initially she was going to scrap the whole memoir because that was such a focal point. It was the key through line of being able to tell her story. But instead, she made the decision to redact the information, which I think is even more powerful because it speaks so strongly to how society constantly silences women. I encourage all of you to follow Chelsea Devantez, listen to her Glamorous Trash podcast, read her memoir, follow her wherever you can. Everyone, welcome Chelsea Devantez. I want to start with a couple weeks ago, you marked 1 year since the release of the book. And I followed your whole process of getting the deal and writing and rewriting and hanging out in your hot tub writing. How does it feel a year later?
It feels great. Honestly, it feels really, really good. I think I was carrying so much of that stuff with me through life as a secret. And then I was carrying it through the distillation of putting it into a memoir and editing and thinking and researching. And then in the initial release, you're still really carrying all of it because you're feeling the feedback and the reception and you did it. And now a year out, all of this heavy stuff I was carrying is like, it feels like I checked a bag. You know what I mean? Like I checked a really heavy bag and I'm not lugging it through the airport anymore. It's still mine. It's still meeting me at my destination, but like I'm not physically carrying it. And I really feel the lift of that weight.
I want to compare that to like a week or a month after it was released, because that was a heady time for you. Was there a certain feeling? And then how did that compare in the weeks later as people started to read it?
Other authors warned me of this, which is that a book release day does not feel the same as like a television release day or something else more eventful because it takes a long time to read a book. And many people are like, ooh, I want to read that book, but they're not going to read it for like a year from now, right? And rarely do you put out a book and that night everyone's like, I read it and I loved it. You know what I mean? They would have spent all day reading the book. So there's a bit of a silence on the book release day and week, except we filled it with book tour stuff and a big book launch. So it was just really fun and joyful and amazing. I mean, I was launching with like Jon Stewart in New York City, like on the book release day. So that stuff was incredible, but the actual like reception to the book, to process that took like months.
And a big part of your career before you became a published author, you've been a writer forever. So journaling, you kept journals?
Yeah. Freelance journal from 7 years old to 21 years old.
Culling through all those journals. You also are a acclaimed TV writer, Emmy nominated, worked with Jon Stewart, Girls Five Eva, Bless This Mess. So compare the process of writing for television compared to writing a book, because you also do some personal writings in television and obviously comedy. But what is the satisfaction with both, and what is the biggest pain point with both?
The satisfaction with both is entirely different. The satisfaction at least in my specific work, is really seeing an incredible joke hit, seeing these fictional elements really affect a person. For me, though, it's always comedy. So it's like, oh my God, that episode was really funny, or really, I don't write drama. Whereas the memoir is so dramatic, even though I was trying to keep it funny, the fulfillment was really more internal. It was so fulfilling for me to put that out, and so fulfilling to receive deeply, deeply personal responses. I never get a message being like, Girls Five Ever, like, deeply spoke to me in my childhood, and now I'm writing my own Girls Five Ever, and now I've gone to therapy and all this stuff. But I do get those messages about the books. And I will also say with the book, the notes process is so much better. It's kind of a stunning, beautiful process if you have a great editor, because just the writing is getting better and better and clearer and clearer. Whereas in television and film, oftentimes the writing is getting worse and worse and worse as a bunch of people give notes that sometimes it makes it better, sometimes it makes it worse. Whereas with the book, it was just two cooks in the kitchen, and it was mostly me.
What about the pressure with both? With TV, you might be on a weekly, or I don't know how tight of the deadlines are, but book, you might know a year in advance, but there's many deadlines throughout the way, right?
Yeah.
Did one have more pressure?
Did one have more pressure? Maybe the book, because television has such a giant system built around it, and 100 people could be involved in that set and that process. Like the machine is moving, and should you fall down, someone else is going to take your spot, someone else, in either a kind way or a get out of my way. Like, it's going to continue, it's going to make it. Whereas the book, there's no book if I do not finish the book. And especially I was doing both at the same time a lot. So it was really like, how do I get, this episode to air and in the ways that make it great with all my coworkers and feel really fulfilled by it, and then at night go home and write a memoir.
It was my favorite book of last year.
That's huge, because you are such a big reader. That means
Oh
a
my
lot.
gosh, I have it right next to Casey Wilson and Betty Gilpin, which episode we recorded.
Honored to
so
be
good.
next to those women.
Also, pre-book, you launched your podcast a few years ago, which I'm a huge fan of, a Patreon subscriber, originally called Celebrity Book Club with Chelsea Devantez, and now Glamorous Trash. Can you talk in general about the evolution of that show? Because there's been a lot of add-ons, and you went independent a couple years ago. What does that show mean to you right now compared to when you started?
I think the success of the show is really fascinating, because I saw it in my head as this personal side project versus seeing it as a brand or successful podcast. I think that is both what makes it special and successful, and the quality that's held it back in any ways it's been held back is that same thing of seeing it as like a personal side project versus seeing it as a brand, because that's why there's been so much evolution, because I've always just been like, this is my side thing. And as I grow and change and evolve, it grows and changes and evolves with me, versus with a brand, you'd really want to decide those things from the jump. You know what I mean? Like, this is exactly what it is. This is our thesis. These are our episodes. Here's our marketing strategy. Here's our business plan, and evolve from there. Whereas I was like, I just want to talk about books. And then a network took me on, and then that was terrible. And at the end of the year, it's like, oh, that was really bad. Guess I'll do it on Patreon. Will that work? And so I've really been stumbling my way through. And that's why the podcast has evolved so much. And it means, and has always meant, so much to me on a personal processing level, personal growth level, personal fulfillment level. And that's the reason why I've never dropped it, even though it is a side project that takes so many hours a week. It is like having a full-time job on top of other full-time jobs.
And obviously a passion project.
Yeah,
How many episodes
huge.
have you done so far?
300.
300, and a majority of those are the weekly memoir recaps. Have you kept a tally of how many memoirs you've read?
Yes, for the podcast specifically, I'm at 326, because some of the episodes we were reading like all three Judd's women, or we're reading two relationships or two best friends. So some of the episodes have multiple. All the Spice Girls books are one episode.
And the rules around that, is it usually if you have worked with the person personally, you don't want to comment on it, or someone in comedy specifically?
Yeah, comedy specifically because one, those types of books are often different. They have a lot of comedy in them versus being a pure memoir. So the process of dissecting it would be different. Two, Tina Fey's my boss. She's not currently my boss, but like she was my boss, right? Or Mindy Kaling works with a producer that I do all my shows with. Or, I like did a whole thing with Amy Schumer for years. Like there's so many comedians where it would feel like I wouldn't even know how to approach it in any sort of unbiased way. I think it would feel really unfair to the listeners to give an episode that I'm like so deeply in the weeds on. And I think it would feel unfair to them to have me go in with all this bias in reading their book.
The podcast is called Glamorous Trash, and you have declared yourself trash many times.
Yeah.
But also glamorous because you also have done drag for many years. Can you remind me what your drag name is?
Well, I've retired that drag name because it was a horrible drag name. I retired her when the book came out as a chapter title, Dix Victoria.
Have you always felt a dichotomy of glamour and trash in your life?
Definitely. And that's where the brand name came from, where growing up, I think a lot of people can relate to this, but we really hid the trash. Because if you think of like the 2000s, early 2000s and up, which is like my coming of age years, you're wanting to be normal. Abercrombie, Playboy Mansion has 7 girlfriends with blonde straight hair. Like standing out really caused you a lot of harm. And that could be emotional harm, it could be physical harm. Like you didn't want to be othered. And we were so othered in every single box you could check. And so I was really hiding the trash parts. And really, there was always glamour around with my mom and my godmother. I'm talking like feather boas, velvet lingerie from Walmart, French vanilla lattes from 7-Eleven, drugstore lipstick, a little on the cheeks as blush. And so that had a lot of glamour to it. And finally, when I really kind of came to the core of who I am, I was like, oh, that's exactly what it is. And now I am so proud of the trash parts of me. I think they are the best parts of me. I wish there were more people with my background in Hollywood. And I think it is those two together that make my favorite things in life. A classic high-low. French vanilla latte from 7-Eleven. Like that to me is my greatest pleasure. A really, really deep, thoughtful, intellectual conversation about Real Housewives.
And am I correct that Dolly Parton would be an influence?
Yeah. Oh, a huge influence. When I first debuted the podcast, listen, I was just like, well, here's the name, boop, 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 boop. So when I changed the name, I was like, okay, let's legally get the rights to this name. Because also when you're a TV writer, you have to choose a production name when you have shows going. And I had a show going at that point. And that has to go through the whole legal process to have your production card at the end. So it's sort of like 2 birds with 1 stone. I'll choose a name that could really represent me and the podcast, pay all these legal fees, get it done. And when they went and did the copyright search for Glamorous Trash, they only found one use of it, which it was an interview where Dolly Parton told someone the way she likes to dress is glamorous trash. And I said, then that's definitely the name.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So you're doing this podcast for several years and you're reading all these memoirs. Have you always had it in your back pocket that you would pitch your own memoir?
I always had it as a deep, deep dream that I thought would come true when I was 97 years old if I accomplished enough in life. And to have it come at a time when I was way too young to write a memoir by most standards, and I hadn't accomplished enough. And I still got to write the memoir, and that's kind of been like the most incredible thing to me.
Is there a specific memoir that you read as a teen that really impacted you most if you had to decide one?
Well, definitely Delta Burke's. Delta Burke's was the very first memoir I ever read, and she really struggled with beauty, in which the ways it was weaponized against her when she had it, and it was weaponized against her when she, quote, didn't have it because she was a size 10. And really just reading her discuss beauty so honestly in this like really fun style book blew open my world in a really beautiful way when I was 16.
And you got to do an exclusive interview with her.
Yes, in one of my crowning moments and achievements. Writing the memoir, I got to get PR for it and for the book, and the PR team, Sam, was like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "I want to send a letter to Delta Burke." And she was like, "Yeah, but what PR do you want?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but like, can you please send a letter to Delta Burke?" And she did, and I got to speak to her. It was incredible.
And that was her first and only interview in many years, right?
In 20 years.
That's incredible. And she's living
Yeah.
a good life now.
An amazing life. She's the happiest, dreamiest, most fulfilled woman. And she totally was like, fuck you, Hollywood, but is also still a part of it. And I look up to her so much.
And you decided, I shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm going to anyway. But you did many polls on Instagram of possible titles and getting all your fans' input. Can you tell everyone the original title that was in the press release that we read years ago?
I love you, please forgive me, and fuck you.
They said you shouldn't do that because Amazon, you'd have hard sales with that, right?
Yeah, basically you could use the word fuck if it was like, like how to be a fucking badass, or like a million fucking ways to be fucking cool. But if I used it like fuck you, that retailers like Amazon, or I don't know if Target ever got a hold of it, or Barnes and Noble, like they would bury it on their sites. Like they would have a harder time selling it.
Well, it's an incredible book. When I first received it, I think I got it from your publishers because you were coming on my old show. And I emailed them. I said, I'm not sure if I got the right copy. There's a lot of black lines through it. And they're like, oh no, that's just the first chapter. You'll understand if you read it. And so let's get into that. The first chapter is full of black bars of redacted material. And this is what delayed the book. You were considering scrapping the whole book. It's sort of woven throughout the book, deals with domestic violence and your survivor story. And as it was nearing publishing, you were told you can't include all of this.
I can't include any of it.
It's a lot to go through, but take us through getting that news and the ultimate decision to include the material with redacted information.
Yeah, so the biggest reason I even wanted to write a memoir is because I finally was ready to share this domestic violence story that had occurred when I was very young. And I'd finally made it through enough years of life and processing that I could even share it. It was a big secret I'd been keeping. And I really wanted to share it because domestic violence stories are often relegated to the dark corners of the newspaper, dark corners of the internet, Lifetime movies. They're talked about in hushed tones. It's always like a faceless woman. And I really wanted to share a story that made you realize it is the woman next to you. It is the comedian on stage. It could be you. And also I wanted to tell it with humor and comedy. That's my style. Like, when do you ever get to read a domestic violence story like that? It's so painful to go into this because that was the thrust of the memoir. Not only was it the emotional reason for writing the memoir, it was the structure of the memoir. So it was the first chapter, it was the last chapter, it was a twist in the middle, and that had Easter eggs throughout. So when I was finally told I couldn't include any of that because the publisher's lawyers made this crazy decision based on my own writing of how dangerous he was. They were like, he sounds really dangerous. We don't want to take the risk of you including this. And they used my own writing against me. So they would be like, well, you wrote this. And it's like, well, I mean, that's true. And they're like, yeah, so he seems bad. It's like, he is bad. What are you talking about? It was horrible. It was a horrible, horrifying, brutal experience. I've already been through the legal system twice with this case. And so to go through lawyers again who are supposed to be on my side, who are, working for the person publishing my book, to also brutalize that story and me again, it was like unfathomable. It really set me back in many ways. And instead of deleting it, I was so mad. I said, no book then. And they were like, great, we won't publish the book. And then a bunch of things happened, and I decided, okay, I'm going to black out what's in there so that these lawyers can't technically tell me no. I tried to leave enough in that you get the whole story if you read the words. And I just tried to, instead of telling my story, tell the story of how our systems are set up to silence victims at every stage of their life, including me at my most successful. I have a book publisher. I have lawyers. I have money. I know famous people. I've worked on famous jobs. Like, sometimes there's famous people on my phone that they could text me back if they felt like it. Sometimes they do. That seems like a lot, right? I have all these things. I'm not even allowed to tell you what has happened to me and has already been legally documented imagine what happens to other domestic violence victims.
It's a shameful cycle. You're
Yes.
silenced. Your own story was silenced.
Yeah.
And the book is very funny. There's a lot of trauma, but there's plenty of humor. The book does end. I felt there's a frustration about how you had to end that book, about how you had to rearrange that book. And you can feel it at the end of that. And now your book is going to paperback. Will there be edits to show stuff from the last year?
So in the paperback, you get to include bonus material. Of course, I took it way too far, and my editor was like, wait, there's a word count on this. I was writing like a whole nother book in the bonus material. I wrote an essay with hindsight, with clarity. I'm a year away from the rage that was really clouding my creative process at the time. I wrote about the process of it being silenced. I have yet to find out if that can make it into the paperback or not. And then I also wrote 10 other lists for the bonus content, because lists and memoirs always crack me up. It's always a panic device. And so I wrote my own 10 crazy lists for the bonus material.
Oh, I hope that makes it in, because I was trying to remember the wording, but it was something along the lines at the end of the book, like because you couldn't share yours or you couldn't tell your full story. And
That I hope others tell theirs.
but at the same time, I feel like the redactions is so powerful. I'm wondering what readers have gotten from that. How have they responded?
It's been overwhelming and incredible. I think for me, I really look at it this way, which is that when I sold the memoir and when I originally wrote the memoir, I believed, and now we'll never know, but I truly believed I'm going to be able to walk people in to a domestic violence story in a way they never would have allowed themselves or wanted to read it before. And I'm going to bring in people to this understanding who would never normally look at this material. And I was really excited to attempt that. Because again, it's shame, and it's shame and secrets. And if more people knew about this stuff, the cycle would be broken, right? But we don't look at it because it's so hard to look at. So I was like, ooh, I'm going to be able to achieve this thing, and I'm really going to be able to bring people in. When I had to redact the book, I realized that is no longer going to happen. The book is going to be for who it's for. And it is really, really deeply for a certain set of people. And it is for people who often have lived a really dark life alongside me. I think it is too much and overwhelming and a blockade for people who wouldn't have wanted to take in that story to begin with. Now they're definitely not going to, because it's too hard. You have to really bring yourself to the book for that first chapter, because words are marked out. I will always grieve that. I will always grieve the person that's like, why are there black bars here? Why would you even write a book if you've got to put black? Like, I will grieve that I never got to write an essay with so many jokes that person made it to the end of that story and actually took something beautiful away from it. And that part's been hard.
It is extremely powerful. I think it makes it more powerful because it does speak to the silencing that we're still fighting against.
Constantly.
I have another heady, hard-hitting topic, and then we'll lighten up. Because you've also, through the years, I've heard you on your podcast open up about, I want to get the wording right, your donor dad? Is that, how can I phrase it right? You're a donor child?
It's a great question. So I call myself a donor kid, but most donor conceived adults don't like that phrasing. It allows people to see this as like, you're a kid, you're a baby, we're creating miracle babies, when really you are creating adult human beings who are going to like walk around this earth. And so I am a donor conceived adult, and my biological father was a bunch of jizz in a cup. I believe that's a technical term. If you'd like a journalistic term, Kyle, bunch of jizz in a cup would be great.
But you've also used your podcast and your book to shed light on that whole process and the system that you feel a lot of times is not working properly or can be detrimental.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. It is crazy to be conceived this way. Even when I'm saying it out loud, I always feel a bit outside myself, because I'm like, this is so, and I don't know how to convey. I really tried in the book how viciously painful it is to be a human. and also be holding this part of me that's also inside me and part of me. And I think there are ways donor conceived adults and parents of donor conceived children can raise them so that that pain is mitigated or not there. But most of the time, according to the few studies that have been made about us, it can be a really detrimental process. And it's not even really my opinion. This fact, I tell me what you think. The entire fertilization industry, donors, egg donors, sperm donors, like conceiving children, that entire industry, unregulated. There are no federal laws. There are no state laws. There are no medical moral practices across the board. There's no medical laws. No laws. There is no tracking. And on purpose, for many years, even though that's slightly changing now, they destroyed, hid, or kept private the records of the genetics that created you. Why? Why? They did it on purpose. So many donor kids, especially from the 80s, my years, it's like you call up your clinic and you're like, can I get my medical records? They're like, oh, there was a fire. There was a flood, right? Because they're doing fucked up shit. They're preying on infertility trauma in parents. And it is a huge financially profitable industry. And every year they have this big like medical, like we're talking about everything in the donor industry and ways for fertility, all these things that as humans we should be celebrating, like, you know, ways to bring a family together and fertility. And like, that's a partisan issue. And they will not have any adults who were conceived from the process ever speak on the panels. There's protests outside. They don't want to hear from us because they don't want people to know what happens in this process, lest they be regulated. Now, I think there is a single law in Colorado that says you can no longer donate more than 10 times. And there might be different laws popping up. The last time I studied this was for my memoir a year ago. And now I'm like, I need a break. But even if in Colorado you could only donate 10 times, and when the child is 18, they get to find out who created them, you could drive over to Arizona and Utah. You could drive to all 50 states and you could donate 100 times in each state.
It's pretty incredible. I actually know someone who just ordered sperm off a website and it was delivered for like $300, $400.
Yep, absolutely. They're doing it on Facebook.
I thought you just had to go to a clinic and like I thought there was a much bigger fine-tooth comb process, but you know,
why would you not care what makes your child? Why would you trust mail order sperm? Let's say they said it was tested. This is what they ought to do. It's been tested. He's blonde, blue-eyed. He's from Harvard. Like, why are you trusting them? You wouldn't trust that on Hinge. You'd be like, let me see it in person, liar. And yet you're going to create a human child from that? Crazy.
Okay. I want to move on. I want to move on to your strong declaration that you hold grudges. And you have a chapter about it. It's called Shit Bitch, Grudge City. Tell us why you feel it's important in certain cases to hold grudges and that you don't find that to be a burden.
Well, I would say that's incorrect. I don't think anyone should hold a grudge. I'm just letting you know that I do. And I'm not saying it's a burden. It's not a burden. It's a heavy burden. It's a burden I carry with me every day. And if you have a grudge, you're having trouble carrying it, I'd love to carry it for you. If I could do that thing where it's like, forgiveness is for you and actually you're free, like I would do it. You know, I've tried to put in the work. It's not happening for me. What I have is deep hate in my heart. And that's just how I be living.
But along with that, you have a chapter in your book about a best friend breakup.
Mm-hmm.
And that breakup lasted many, many years. So that grudge kind of festered. How many years was it?
6.
And as part of this book, there was healing. Can you go through that process?
So I think the thing, at least with me and grudges, is that like if Shit Bitch had been like, hey, I read your book. Oh my God. I'm a fucking monster. Even if they wanted to be like, but here's what was going on in my life and all the things that made me be a bad person, blah, blah, blah. But if they're like, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. My grudge would be over. I want you to say you are fucking sorry. I want you to explain what you did. And I want to know that you feel like shit. Now I'm done with my grudge. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want justice. I want justice. And especially if you're going to do horrible things and then you're also not going to apologize. You're going to look at everything you did and be like, no, I believe in myself. Then I want you to get run over by a car. You know what I mean? Like, that's just horrendous to me. Maybe it's because anytime I've done something wrong or messed up, I feel extreme guilt. I always try and make things right. And so, I feel upset that people could be so horrific and not pay for it or apologize for it. Two options. Now, in the case of Rebecca, she apologized, which is all I ever wanted. And also in the book, what happens is she takes a TV show from me, technically from both of us, but since she was walking away, it was like destroying me and these 8 years I'd put into us. So not only as a friendship, but as our career, and she destroyed it. I always wanted her to offer something. In the book, I say the size of a TV show. I wanted her to realize like how deeply she messed up, how much she, not just like how much you hurt me, but like this was so beautiful. Why did you throw it away as a friendship, as a concept or whatever? And she did. And for me, she was like, write the book. I see it differently. I see things happening differently. That's not how I would phrase it, but you have my blessing to print it. That is your version. And that to me was such a beautiful offering of grace that we have become friends again.
So there's mending, but is it possible to go back to how things were before?
With us, no.
But you're not best friends.
No, and honestly, I feel that pain every time I see her. She came on my podcast. I mean, we spent 6 years apart. We've spent 3 timid years back in each other's lives. We still say things at the exact same time. We still make the same joke. You'll hear it on my podcast, like, and that used to happen to us in life all the time. We really felt like we had one soul, and we would deliver comedy from that soul as a duo, and we still have it. We still share it. I still grieve all the time this other life I could have had doing this career with my best friends, and I'll always be sad about it. And I think that sadness will always be in the way of being best friends, but it doesn't mean we're not incredibly close. And like, I cherish her again, which is wild. I never thought that would happen.
Bittersweet healing. I want to get to your mom because she was the person you were most nervous to have read the book. She wasn't getting snippets throughout the book, right? While as you were writing?
No.
Okay. So she read it. Do you know how long it took her to read it?
I think one night, one furious evening, probably.
Take us through the process of her reaction.
So I sent the book to 8 intimate people in my life with a return envelope and a red pen. And I said, mark anything, especially like with my brothers or my mom, like, did I get a location incorrect, a line of dialogue incorrect? Like, you can mark that up. You can put other things. And my mom, when I got her notes back, I think it was really hard. I think it was really, really hard for her. I think when you go through something that deep, it kind of freezes your brain at first. You got to go back and reread. I think she had to reread it a few times. I think it wasn't just the fact that I was putting this out to the public. I think it was I was stating things out loud that she and I had both lived through that we'd never examined together or had the courage to show to each other, because it's the type of stuff that like breaks a human when you look at it. And ultimately, she too, as hard as it was, horrific as it was like, publish this memoir, tell your story. And when I was being redacted, she fought for me and tried to help me tell a story that when we were living it, I didn't exactly get help with. And so it was really healing, as hard as it was.
That's beautiful. Do you think you're
Yeah.
closer now?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because while I think my mom was always as close to me as she's ever been, like that was always present. She always loved me and was always there for me. I was holding on to so much anger in order to not hurt her. I didn't want to show her my pain. I didn't want to show her my truth. I didn't want to show her how I felt. How can you ever be close to someone when you are hiding something to make them feel better? And I thought, like, okay, well, I'm going to show her this thing. I'm going to show her how I was really impacted, and it's going to push us apart. And what I didn't expect is that it brought us together, because now I was finally being as close to her as she was always being to me, because I didn't have all this stuff blocking it.
I'm so happy to hear that. It's such again, I shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm going to anyway. I just love the book. It was a big undertaking. Are you inspired to ever write another one?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, really, when I came out, the first thing that happens, okay, it's kind of like when you get married at the wedding, everyone's like, "Are you having kids?" And you're like, "I still got to pay the catering bill." Like this cannot. Why? You have one kid. The first question is, "Are you having another one?" Same with a memoir. You write a book that day. Are you writing another one? And you're like, "I'm actually." Still about to like throw up and pass out from this one. Like, no, I'm not writing another fucking book. And then enough time passes and I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to write another book. And so right now I'm in the struggle of being torn between fiction and another nonfiction. And also, when I was doing the memoir, I was sort of neglecting some TV and film stuff. Now I'm really focusing on that. And now I'm neglecting some author stuff.
Yeah, well, let's get into that. So, the tangle, let's get into what you're tangled in right now. So, stuff you're loving that you're really immersing yourself in right now. And maybe if there's anything frustrating that you're trying to get untangled from right now.
Oh my God. Oh, love the premise. Love the title. Now, is this stuff I'm loving, like stuff I'm watching or stuff in
Yeah,
my
it can be
life?
anything, stuff you're binging, like stuff in your newsletter.
Oh my gosh. My newsletter's 10 hot wrecks. So I am currently right on the precipice of something big I've been working for 6 years finally happening, but I'm not across the finish line. And it's this weird, hellish month where you're like, this is happening, right? Like, we're so close that, like, it's a part of my life I need to talk about, but we're not close enough that I can talk about it because what if a month from now you check in and I'm like, oh God, everything went to shit. But I will say, every single day I am watching 1 to 2 films and I am pulling shots from each of those films and organizing them and categorizing them. And so, which is a tedious process because you're pausing, rewinding, pausing, rewinding. So it's not just like straight through watching, your 2 hour film. It'll be like a 3 or 4 hour process per each. So I'm doing that. And then I'm taking breaks by reading the book Girl on Girl, which is how pop culture taught women to hate themselves in the 2000s. And then I'm also taking breaks with really fun stuff like Love Island, America's Sweethearts on Netflix. For some reason, I'm watching House of Dragons.
What?
I know, I know. And
Secret Lives
so
of Mormon Wives. I know you're into that.
yes, we'll see. The only reason I'm not watching that is because it's done and finished reunion. But yeah, watched all of that.
Why didn't Demi show up? She said she had to go to a family trip. No.
Because she is truly to Disneyland, liar. She's truly the worst villain in history. A villain, a really good villain.
No remorse. Oh my gosh.
Well, no. I think different. I think Demi thought she was the hero, and so to not be the hero, her world is blown open. She's cowering. She's hiding. Whitney is a great villain. She kind of loves the chaos. She'll nurse her baby to get back in the group as they're like, "You're a bitch," and she's like, "Hell yeah, am I in?" Like, that's a fun villain. That's the Joker. That's chaos. That's hilarity. They have a good reason for doing things, but it makes no sense. Demi is like, "But I'm Batman," and it's like, "Bitch, you're not." And she's like, "Oh, well, then I'm not coming."
Yeah, I remember when she said I was the fan favorite, and I was like, I didn't remember you.
I don't think anyone ever said that about you. How did that get in your brain?
But I also found it weird the second season, which was much better produced. It almost was like the guys were more sympathetic. I think
Oh
they
yeah.
they learned from their first season. I think they're cowering, like, oh gosh, that came across really bad.
They're also getting more screen time. They're becoming more part of the narrative because Secret Lives of Mormon wives, they are wives. So like a housewife doesn't have to be a wife. She can be a single lady living her best life. But a Mormon wife is a wife or wanting to be a wife, just was a wife. And so I think they're really bringing the men into the storylines. And I wish they would stop trying to give them redemption arcs, but here we are.
So on your podcast, it's not just memoirs anymore. You recap some TV sometimes, and you've also started incorporating articles. How did that come about?
So I have always wanted to do article, like book clubbing and article episodes. And that is because there are certain articles that took over entire offices I was in where you just couldn't stop thinking about it and dissecting it, like Bad Art Friend, Cat Person. Just these incredible articles. And I was always like, we should do this. We should do this. But I just never had the time. And then the writer's strike happened. And I said, let's finally do my idea. And it's been phenomenal. The response has been incredible. It's also been like more fun to produce them because they don't take as long as a book. So you're not asking your guests to read a book that takes 8 hours. And I've gotten to have all these great discussions that I love articles. I love literature. To me, it was sort of a natural extension of the literature we cover with memoirs. Let's talk about viral articles, which are sometimes really deep topics like MAGA conservative culture. And sometimes it's like, why are we Venmoing brides on their bachelorettes? And I just like, yeah, it's the culture to me. I love it.
Before we go, I'll do a quick rapid fire. This will be more trash stuff. So memoirs and shows. Okay. There's way too many to choose from, but if someone were just be like, what are 3 of your all-time favorite memoirs?
Demi Moore, Mariah Carey, Gabrielle Union's first memoir.
Biggest disappointments that you were really hoping or thought that were going to be great memoirs?
Oh boy. Liz Phair, Elliot Page, and now I'm looking around. I tend to get rid of the books that I didn't like.
Well, you say any housewife memoir isn't typically a memoir, it's merch.
Yeah, it's typically merch. And oh my gosh, this is rapid fire. I know I have some really good ones. Oh, Ellen.
Yeah, she does not go deep.
She didn't even hit the surface, babe.
Most shocking memoir?
Ione Skye, Julia Fox, Anne Heche.
Saddest? Ones that have made you cry?
Mackenzie Phillips, Tatum O'Neal, and Ronnie Spector.
Oh, that was a sad one. Sally Field is also pretty sad.
Sally Field, that's a great one.
Biggest slog? Not Barbara Streisand, that was so many hours, but really took you a long time. Even if you liked it, it's just hard to wrap your head around. I remember you said Betty Gilpin took a while, but you loved that book.
I love that book. Betty Gilpin's first chapter took a while. Matriarch, the first third of it took a while. And then that's Tina Knowles. The second chunks went by a lot faster. And I really ended up liking it. You know, when they're a slog, it's usually because I hate it. So like John Stamos.
Well, speaking of that, what is your favorite men's memoir?
Daryl Hammond's.
Dark and sad as well, yeah.
One of the darkest ones of all time.
Looking at my books right now, what if there's anything I can ask? You loved Cher.
Yeah, but Cher was a bit of a slog because she is just really having a hard time bringing her story forth. She always has. She really has dyslexia, and you can see that in her tweets. And I knew a lot of her story already, so it was really a book for like newbies to share versus like if you already knew the Cher stuff. You're like, Cher, I know. I'm still really looking forward to her next memoir. Cannot fucking wait for that. Brandy has a memoir coming out. Really looking forward to that. Britney Spears keeps saying she's writing another book. I can't wait for that. And
it was a great book. I don't know. How much did she write?
Well, she had 3 different ghostwriters, so I think she barely got across the finish line. Yeah.
We went through shows. Favorite Housewives franchise?
Oh, Salt Lake City by a million.
Mine too.
One of the best shows ever on television, I would say, including it in the narrative category.
2 more. Someone you really hopes writes a memoir, releases one someday.
Sandra Bullock, Rihanna, and Stevie Nicks.
I was going to say Stevie Nicks and Alanis Morissette for me. She's my favorite.
Yes.
I would love that. And then finally, I have 3 rescue dogs. You have 2, and you also have been fostering. How is being a dog mom, especially a multiple dog mom now?
Ashley Judd once wrote in her memoir that when she is really struggling with depression, she gets another dog. And it is a way to make yourself get up, care for another human, and it really does something for the brain. And I'm someone who deeply suffers from CPTSD, so more dogs, the better, baby. It feels like getting up in my dose of meds. You know what I mean? And it really does. If you're really suffering inside your head, and I wonder if you can relate to this, it's so nice to get out of your head and care for a living thing. And 3 dogs is too many. We are suffering. And yet here we are. Foster dog really needed a home, and we're doing our best. But they bring me so much joy, even when it is so much work.
And you post about them all the time, worth a follow. They're such sweet dogs. And after listening to you all these years, I've listened to every one of your podcasts. So to be able to sit down and actually speak with you for an hour has just been such a pleasure. And I just love you and everything you've been doing. And I do feel like we're kindred, especially in this memoir space. And
I totally agree.
Emulating what you're doing, so I appreciate learning from you all these years too.
I cannot wait for your memoir. Your support and the way we've DM'd and become friends has meant so much in this process, and I feel so lucky to be a part of your life.
I'll let you know if I'm ever in LA. If you ever make it to DC or New York, just let me know and we'll hang out again.
Perfect.
She's just one of my favorite people all around. Again, get her book. I shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm going to anyway. Chelsea Devantez. Also, check out her podcast, Glamorous Trash. You can become a Patreon, which she calls a cookies-only Patreon. And yeah, she is brilliant. I'm so excited that she's going to be writing more books. And I'm so excited that you all are still listening to this podcast. We are growing month by month, and we have more incredible guests along the way this August, kicking it off with this Chelsea Devantez next week. We have a very special guest, and one of the guests that is on my dream list. I got to cross another one off. Oh, I can't wait to tell you who it is, but stay tuned. We will find out soon. Until then, you take care of yourselves.